Hi everyone. So this is another wonderful episode of Bookish Reflections for the month of September. I have been so eager to discuss this book for a while now since I picked it up to read. And if you have been following me on social media, you would know that the book that I will be discussing with my very interesting guest is The Son of the House by Cheluchi. I have enjoyed every bit of the book, and today I finally get to discuss it. And not only am I discussing it today, if you check just the description of this video, you will see a link where I have also talked about the 5 reasons why you should read this book. Because honestly, the conversations that this book will make us have as a society are very important conversations. And so, everyone who will be watching this video, go to the bookstore near you and please go and pick it up. Please go and pick it up, read and enjoy. So I hope you enjoy my conversation with Imisiayo Oloyede, who is a learning specialist. Hi, Imisi. Thank you so much for joining me for Bookish Reflections this month in September. So let me first ask, how was your day or how has your day been? Are you pretty much relaxed? Did you have pretty much of a bumpy ride to work and all that?
Today was good, apart from the rain.
Oh,
It's been good, yeah. It's actually been a good day. I've been in charge of my time. So that's good.
okay. So, the book we'll be discussing is this wonderful, interesting, really packed. I have so many adjectives to describe this book, but one of it is that it's engaging because from the beginning of the story, we meet very, very interesting characters that we share in their joys, we share in their pains and all that. So when you read it, when I told you this was the book we're going to discuss and you got your copy and you read it, so what was your first impression, or what was it that this book did to you as a person, or how did you feel reading and after reading the book?
Okay, while reading, I actually like the fact that I agree with you, it was engaging. I know that the fact I read it, when the first time I read it halfway. So it was already imprinted on my mind. Like, I really need to know what happened. I really need to know what happened. So I read Wambulu's story first. And when I got to Julie's story, I'm like, let me pause first. So I was curious about Julie's story because after I read one police story, which was a lot, and I remember talking to my husband and saying, this life. That was the thing. And he's like, what's the with this life? I'm like, if you see what I'm seeing in this book. But then the end just made me pause and I'm like, why? Why? No, 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 no. I need to know what happened. I
Like
don't
you're
want to give so
hoping
much
there will be
away,
a
but
sequel or something.
yeah, not exactly a sequel. I just felt like an extra page would have done it for me.
Oh, okay.
There were
Yeah.
two. It's okay that there's suspense that I don't need to. I can imagine the other parts, the end of the situation, what happened. But I just felt that it was too much for me to put to my imagination, to just leave to my imagination. Too many. The what ifs were too many. I just felt that I needed just one extra page. So that was my reaction once I finished the story. But it was a lot. And I'm actually happy I was able to even telling my husband the entire story again. It was so interesting. It was like very good gist. And it's like, So so what
Yeah.
now happened? So what did she do? So what did she say? I'm like, chill, don't worry, let me gist you very well. It was
Oh my God.
interesting.
I'm glad you had that kind of interaction with the book because for me personally, as a reader, I love to have read a book and the first thing I want to do is talk about it, and that is why Bookish Reflections was born. Because I'm like I read so many good and interesting stories. I just want to discuss it with somebody, and so I started this and. thank God for for the episodes I've been able to do, and thank you again for joining me. So let me even ask, of all of the characters, you talked about Wambulu and before you got to Julie's story, which of these characters stood out to you? Like, which one did you feel attached to? Like, got your heart, got your soul and spirit? I mean, which of the characters? There were many, pretty much many, although the central focus was on Wambulu and Julie, but overall in the book, which of the characters did you really, really enjoy reading about?
I think at first, I because maybe because the book started with Julie's thoughts at first. So I first of all imprinted with Julie. But then going ahead and just going further in the book, I later found out that I could totally relate with how Nwabulu felt. I felt like I understood Nwabulu better when she thought of something. There were times in the book I'll just feel like I could talk to her and say, no, don't do this. Like I felt I understood how she was thinking. I actually just loved that thought. So I would say Nwabulu actually.
I think I agree with you. I think why we got more attached to Wabu was like we started her story from the very beginning, at the age of 5, when she started having issues with her stepmom, and then all the things that happened in her life till she got married. It was like we followed her every stage of the way. Why Julie just came to us, not necessarily from the beginning of her story, but we just had a little background, but more as to things that led up to where she was at that particular moment of telling the story. So Nwabulu was, I think, the sweetheart of the book because her ordeals were just so many. And then
Yeah.
speaking about ordeals, let's talk about. I felt like this is an issue that we people are beginning to raise awareness about, but people are not. People are still not sensitive to such issues, or we have. For some people, we have taken it as part of society, and that is the way domestic workers are being treated. I mean, Nwabulu being in daddy and mommy's house that time, being, the homes she went to, and let's talk about her overall ordeal as a child. How did that speak to you as a person, as a woman who also, I mean, you are even in the education sector, saying she was basically a child going through
Yeah.
all of. How would you talk about that?
I think that's actually one of the reasons why I was able to, I could relate to Wabulu. So first of all, I understand how it is to grow up with a parent and the other parent is not there and there is another partner. Your parent has a partner because I grew up that way, right? So I could relate to that. I understood how she felt. And then plus the fact that I grew up with ourselves, right? And I have seen different types of house helps. I've seen people and their house helps, even till now, being in the education sector, teaching people who are practically ourselves, or just like creating education for children in public schools and low income communities. I know how it feels. I'm able to see these people. So I would say that the house help situation in this our environment or in our community here in Lagos State is it's ups and downs. You hardly see people who treat these people like human beings. And you know the amazing part of it is that when you see people that treat house helps differently, people say, "Oh wow, that woman is special. She's different." But the only thing she's doing is treating the child as a child, right?
Yeah.
She's yeah, exactly. There's nothing special about treating a help like a human being. Do you understand? But it's
Yeah.
those people who do differently. It's like the normal thing we know is that house help have to be treated differently. They don't have to be treated like your child because they're there to serve. Right, and there's nobody that is going to speak up for them, and I remember something that Daddy said in the book when Wabulu was not going to go back to the village to see her family, and he was like, "That's very good, Jerry. Whenever they go back, they always study something else like that." And I was thinking, like, I remember a friend who had a help. he was treating her okay. This is actually a colleague. It was a colleague, and he had the help, and he was treating her okay. Like I saw his help, and I was shocked. I was like, she's so beautiful. Shakara was on another level. She wasn't like I was surprised. I was like, wow, your help is a big girl. And then until when she said she wanted to go back home to see her family, and he just said if she goes, she should come back. And I wondered why. Why would you do that? So I think when I saw Daddy say, "Oh, it's a good thing she's not going back home," I'm like, I don't understand why people actually do that. It was
Mm,
hard for me to understand actually. I didn't get it, but that's something I may not get. But the house help situation here is just really amazing.
mhm.
Listening to Chelachi talking about the house help thing and how they are actually deprived of all of their rights. That's
Yeah.
true. I totally agree. I was looking at the Child Rights Act last week for a reason because of corporal punishment. And I had the opportunity to now look at the Child Rights Act from the beginning to the end, and I said, we don't even for even our own children, do we? We
Yeah.
don't even we deprive even our children of their rights. Not to talk of house helps. They don't. I don't think there's any rights there that they're given. None,
Mm,
none at all. No single rights. It's. I think the only thing is right to life. That's all.
mm. And some
That's the
of
only
them are
thing.
being beaten so much that you think that that life they have, the employer wants to literally take it from them. That kind of a thing. It's crazy. I
Yeah,
just hope.
they actually behave like they own their lives.
Yeah, I think you're right there. So apart from the issues of the of domestic violence, even sexual violence, at some point in the book, that was another gut wrenching aspect of the book. What are the other things that you saw that you feel we should actually talk about in terms of the story, the other issues that came up to you while you read the book?
Oh well, there were different things that came up to me from Wabulu's story to seeing how ladies. So remember when Wabulu was supposed to be with Urina, and she remembered the sexual assault that she had
Mhm.
before, and it affected how she was with Urina at first. I think it just touched me and just made me think of how there are so many ladies out there that had something sexually related that affects how they are today actually, and these are things that we cannot talk about at all. We can't talk about them because of how you'll be judged. And I just thought of it, it made me remember I have had sexual assaults instances I've seen with children recently, and how there's really nobody to talk to, and that struck me as something very important. I think one other thing that really struck me from the book was Julie, and how Julie was not able to have children and tried her
Mm.
best and tried her best and tried her best. I was confused about something at first. So I thought the fact that as a woman, as I am right now, I think one of the things in this century is a um, women wanting to be allowed to do anything they want to do, right? So I thought of the fact that Julie apparently wasn't bothered about the fact that she wasn't married, right? She wasn't married and she was okay with it. But the only reason why she got married was because her mom was pressing her to. So I thought of it that was our mom right eventually? I couldn't really get it because she getting married, not having a child, and then having a child. It seems like her mom was right that children are the most important things in life. But then I was thinking about it like today, I don't know, I feel like we want to be able to do whatever we want to do. And if a woman doesn't want to get married, that's fine, right? If she doesn't want to have children, that's fine. But I was thinking, like, do you also think that it is right that children are like the most important things in life for a woman, to a woman rather.
Mm. Now you have brought us to the core about women of then and their way of thinking. I'm talking of the 50s, the 60s, and probably earlier than that, and the women of this generation and how we see things. For I have friends, or I have met one or two people who are literally not interested in the subject of marriage. I mean, girls who like,
Yeah.
it's not for me. I've read the book, I have seen the movie of marriage, and it's not for me. And they can't really say this out because society still feels that a woman is incomplete or is not fully a woman until she is married. And then when you're married, you're not complete. You are not okay until you have a child. Do you think that this narrative, this belief system is going to change anytime soon, where a woman's worth is dependent on her marital status and her fertility status, her ability to have a child? Do you think that it's going to change? Has there been any change from then, like looking at Julie's time, if we were to look at it in that context, and now where we are in right now?
Okay, so one thing I thought when I started to, when we got to the point of Julie not having children, so I started to think of, are you even sure that it is not uncle that has the problem, right? Because he has two children, doesn't necessarily. You remember Baba Segi's book, right? He had
Mm-hmm.
Baba Segi and his four wives, right? He had
Yeah,
children. So nobody could blame him for the infertility, right? So I was thinking at first that, are you sure that this man is not the one with the
with the
problem?
problem. Yeah.
Yes, because they didn't really talk about the problem.
Mm.
So I thought that was one part that was left out. And then she also went to the UK and still nothing happened. And they did still tell us what the problem was. Do you understand? So I think that's one major difference with then and now, which is knowing what exactly the problem was. I think children are important, but I don't think that they are life's essence to a woman.
Mm.
Do you
Yeah.
understand? So, but I think now what may be happening, the change that may be happening now is people realizing that problems do not always lie with the woman, and men also beginning to realize that they should also be open to finding out what the problem is. So I think one thing that hasn't changed exactly is the society blaming the woman.
Yeah.
So society will definitely blame the woman. Yes, that doesn't change. But I think there's still something coming up. More people are beginning to realize that it is possible that it is not the woman's problem. And I
Mm.
think that's probably even something that should change in our education system. I remember one of the happiest things I felt that made me happy as a biology teacher in SS3 was when I had to teach I think reproduction, and it was in the curriculum to teach about who determines the sex of the child. So I was happy. I'm like, this is in the curriculum. So these men that say they are women are having girls, who taught
Yeah.
them? So I said, I was surprised about that. Who taught them? So one of the things I always did whenever I teach biology to SS3 students was always say, now you're educated. When your
Mm.
wife is having girls, you are the reason why she's having girls. And if you see any man who says his wife is the one producing girls, you know he's not educated, right? So I
Mm.
think that's even one of the things that can be brought into the curriculum. Educates the boy child and the girl child so they understand these things and grow up with this knowledge and know that fertility doesn't lie with the woman.
Mm.
It lies with both of them, and anything could actually go wrong. It could be the woman and it could be the man. So I just think that that was one thing that struck me from the book, not understanding where the problem was.
What the problem was. And then the lies and the deceits and the decisions. How much of the extent Julie had to go to sort of preserve her female dignity. It to me, I felt sorry for her. I felt yes, I felt really sorry for her because I think that in that time it felt like she had to do this to have a face in society. But I think women of nowadays are damning society and deciding to do what they want, and I think that is pretty much liberating, like not allowing these things make you make decisions such as taking a child, and yeah, and all of that. But there was a statement that Julie's mother made in that book that I want us to read. She said, "You are somebody's child until you are somebody's wife." So, in other words, the whole essence of Julie as a woman was that she was
She
going to
belongs to somebody.
she would always belong to somebody. She
It's-
would not have a person of her own. She can't be her own. And then the so-called son of the house, Afam, let's look at them. The one who would end up being the wife doing the supposedly should be the wife doing the chore, shouldn't have gone to school according to Julie's mother, ended up pretty much being the breadwinner of that home. So the irony of the title of the book, The Son of the House, because ordinarily the son is supposed to be the all in all. What do you think about
I think that the major reason why people or men then held their sons in high esteem more than the daughters was mostly because of the name.
that? Mm,
He's the one that will carry on the name, isn't it? You will get married and bear somebody else's name. So I think it was that's the major thing they kept. I think the Afam name was basically
yeah.
your name living
Yes,
on, right? It was that name thing. And of course, God forbid a woman gets married in the 50s or 60s or 70s and says she wants to bear
retain
her
her name.
father's name. I mean, that's an abomination.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
That's an abomination. And I think that now a woman can say, I don't want to change my name. I want to bear my father's name. And so it's now possible for a woman to actually carry on her father's legacy. I feel like these are the mind shifts that need to happen before people are able to understand the entire thing of what a woman really is or what she wants to be. So I think even that name thing, having a change, switching to I will bear my father's name and I am married to you, can actually, it should begin to show men that it is possible for your daughter to actually carry your legacy
Mm,
if you want. So a woman can actually carry or bear the family's legacy into other generations if possible. She wants to bear your name. I think when I was going to school, something people used to tell me is, your father is not going to want you to get married or until you're done with school because Yoruba men they want their daughters to have their certificates in their name and I'm like okay yeah but the thing is even now even if I get married and I get married I can decide to bear my father's name in
mm,
education, right? Like
yeah.
that can happen. Do you understand? So I think that even for me personally, I could relate to that aspect of Julie's life, being the daughter that had to be responsible because that's the kind of person that I am in my family. So I totally understood Julie. I understood
Mm,
that part, but I just think that even in the aspect of a woman belonging to somebody, that may not change as long
mm.
as a woman is either unmarried and she's married. So if you're unmarried, you're still your
Now your
father's
father's
child.
body.
If you're your father's daughter, and if you're married, you belong to your husband. That will probably take a long time to change, right? But I think one of the steps to having that change is people realizing that this name thing can continue with women.
Yeah.
It doesn't like the Kardashians. They still bear their name,
Well,
right?
yeah.
And like he gave birth to girls, and like they still bear their father's name. So if he had only one son, imagine him saying, "Oh, even if he didn't have one son, oh my God, I have five girls. None is going to bear my name." That's not happening. That name is out there. You get it,
Yeah.
but it's going to take time. But I think there are things happening towards that change.
And I also think that in the I really don't get into the name debate because I believe the woman can make her choice at the end of the day. For example, a woman who has built a career around her name, maybe you have a business and you have this name, you put your name as the business name, and then everybody knew you or knows you by your business name, and then she gets married. Suddenly she has to really really change everything. And so I always and for many people they tend to still retain it for such purposes. So I think at the end of the day it's the woman's
That name
choice.
thing, that name thing is a struggle because even if you say you want to change your name, it really is not easy. I feel like this. I gave you my married name. That's the first time I'm using it out there. I don't
Oh,
use it professionally. I still use my maiden name, right?
oh,
Even though I started to change it in some places, but it's not easy at all. If you think of, say honestly, if you think of how many things you have to change your name, it's
wow.
a struggle. You have to change with BVN, you have to change with NIN, you have to, and you pay for these things. Oh, you don't pay for BVN, but you pay for NIN. You have to change it with your passport. There used to be a time people. So at the time I just applied for my passport. They now do it in Lagos. But from what I heard from people before me, women travel to Abuja to change their names in their passports. They were not changing it in Lagos. So
Oh,
imagine, oh
interesting.
yes, they were not. You have to travel to Abuja, and that's like either you go to Abuja that day and come back that day, or if you are wealthy, you go to Abuja, stay the night, and come back the following day just to go and do biometrics to change your name in your passport. You have to change it in banks. You have to change it at work. I'm still holding on. If it's changing as time goes, fine. But you see that stress of going to go and change this here, going to change it. No, no, no. No, 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 no.
Oh
It's
my
not
god.
easy.
Yeah, and so at the end of the day, the author leaves us to make our own conclusions as to the what we think would happen. I don't want us to give spoilers so that people will go and read the book. But in wrapping this all up, Julie said, she said, I would make a better son of the house. And that struck me. That statement, I will make a better son, because she was the better student. She was the one more in tune with school. She was more serious, more focused. And the irony of it all, we think that the male child is the all in all. And at the end of the day, they always say it is the daughter that stays back. And one of the things that the author also did was that the fathers in this book were actually progressive thinkers. If Nwabulu's father had not died, she would have continued school. And if, of course, we could see how much of pride Julie's father had got in Julie's success as a woman, going to school and coming up. But it was the women that were the issue. Did you see that? Nwabulu's stepmother did not see the value of school in a girl. Julie's mother did not see the value of school. And then I'm like, what is happening here? It should have been the other way around. The women should have been the one pushing for these progressive thoughts, the fact that the girl can also do. But it was totally the opposite. Do you see that changing now, especially with women? Women, do you think women are still hold? I don't know. In my opinion, I think a lot of things are changing. People are beginning to be more progressive. But how far have we come in that aspect?
Well, I know that then a girl's education was with her mom, right?
Mm,
So you have to learn from your mother. And so I think that I do not entirely blame their mothers because what they learned was from their moms as well. And a woman was taught to know her place, and they knew that this was their place. Their place was in the kitchen. And so, if the change did not come from the fathers themselves, I feel like it would have been very difficult, really.
mm,
Do you understand? It would have been very difficult for a woman to say, "Oh, I want to educate my children," and the father saying, "Where? In my house? that would have been a big problem. Obviously, you know those girls will not have been educated because I have a real life scenario of that. I know a man who doesn't want to educate his children, and his wife wants to, and obviously those children don't go to school. Do you
Wow.
understand? So I think that knowing when it's the men who are the lords or who were the lords then have the mind shifts, then women are able to make it, are able to make decisions. Do you understand? And then now I think there's one major thing that I caught is that women have always been very ambitious.
Yeah.
So, ambition not necessarily determined by education, but the fact that we've just had this drive. And I heard Julie's mother talk about it, where she talked about the women of the 60s, how whenever they had power and if they made a decision, men were afraid of them. And that's one major thing that women have, which is when they put their mind to something, they try their best to make sure they achieve it.
Yeah.
Not regarding what the damning every consequence, which is even going naked and showing that they really do not even care about shame right now. This is what they want. And I think that women still have that still today. But it's usually limited by what
Mm.
society wants or expects of you now. But
Mm.
I do like the fact that I think the major people that need education are the men.
Yeah.
So if a man understands and sees the reason, oh, okay, a woman doesn't necessarily have to stay in the kitchen all the time, then we're able to do what we want to do. I think the people who need the education are the men. Yeah,
Thank
and
you
once they're
so.
educated, that's it.
That's it. Oh, thank you very much. We spent quite a lot of time. I've enjoyed our conversation so far. So, one last question: if you were to recommend a book to anyone to read, like read this book before you die, what book would it?
Oh my goodness. I think there's one book that's imprinted on me from when I was a child to now, and that is actually The Laws of Power. I don't know why.
Oh,
I
okay.
just, I would, I saw that book in my father's library because my father is also a reader. He is still a reader. And that book, I would read it and go back and steal it. So it's not even the book that you read and drop it, like, okay, I finished reading it and you drop it. I feel like it's that book that you need to
You to read
consistently
over and over.
check. You need to always read over and over. Like, it's like the mind shift. You always need to just check it. I feel like that's like one book that you should
Okay.
read before you die.
Thank you so very much. Imisiayo, thank you for taking out time to be with me. Oh, I'm so grateful. I know you're a very busy person. I can't thank you enough.
Yeah, it's a
Thank
pleasure.
you so much. And I'm going to call you another time because I enjoyed this conversation. It means we have to repeat it again. And so I will have to make you do another set of midnight readings because you said you had to read. So you will still have to do more midnight readings so that you can be part
No
of this
problem.
another time. Thank you so
No
very much.
problem.
I am
Thank
grateful.
you, Emma. Thank you for
All
having me.
right. Bye.
Bye.
I hope you enjoyed my conversation with Imisiayo and you learned one or two things. And I also hope that you will come back again on my channel to watch more engaging and interesting episodes of Bookish Reflections as we discuss books and examine societal issues through very amazing characters that many authors have brought our way. So if you haven't gotten your book, please go get yours. It's available wherever books are sold. And also, if you have not subscribed to my channel, liked it, or shared it with someone, please do. I will be very grateful. Give this video a thumbs up. Just share it with your friends, like, subscribe, turn on the notification button, all that you need to do to get this content to as many people that you know would love it. Thank you so much once again. Till I come your way again in October. Bye.